Born and raised in the western part of North Carolina in a rural community that was settled in the late 17, early 1800s by the Moravians, who migrated down from Pennsylvania, but originally came over from Germany. So there's quite a bit of a Moravian influence in this area. So raised in an area that was primarily Southern Baptist, as I said, very rural. The original structure of my home at that location is an 1850s log cabin, and I'm currently in the process of restoring the cabin. But the actual property is about 20 miles east of the conjunction of two very important ley lines within sacred geometry, the Serpent Ley and the Akkadian Ley. And those two lines intersect over Pilot Mountain, which is a very ancient dormant volcano from the Rodina Ridge that dates back a few million years ago. So that intersection occurs directly over the top of Pilot Mountain. But to sort of give you an idea of how important those two ley lines are, the Serpent Ley runs north of Mount Shasta, south of Mount Denali, straight across Serpent Mound, directly over Pilot Mountain, and out to the Bermuda Triangle. The Akkadian line runs from Mexico City into North America, across Pilot Mountain, out to the north, and over to Stonehenge. So a lot of energy, if you study sacred geometry, a lot of energy is concentrated over that mountaintop. And so the home I grew up in, as I said, was about 20 miles east of that property and lies within the Pilot Wheel. And that's another feature in sacred geometry. At the age of 5, I was able to bilocate out of my body. I would sit out back of the cabin and look. I had a direct view of Pilot Mountain, and I was fascinated by it. So I was able to bilocate from my body like a bird out to the mountain and sort of fly around and come back. And I thought that was normal, that most people could do that. And I shared that with my mom, who has or had Cherokee Indian heritage. Her great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, was full-blooded Cherokee. And also through that maternal line is Spanish Basque. So there's a whole another area of research related to the Spanish Basque people being very ancient. But at any rate, she was raised in a very open-minded, spiritual, being aware of spirit and intuitive dreams and those types of things coming down from her maternal great-grandmother. And so she, listened to my stories and didn't discourage me. She just indicated that that was something I didn't want to necessarily take outside the home. I had experiences throughout my childhood of encountering beings that not everyone could see. Some were of paranormal nature, shadow figures, apparitions, hearing voices. Others were more along the ufology line of having encounters in my bedroom. Through regression, my earliest encounter occurred at the age of 4. These beings appeared to me at the foot of my bed, but they appeared as little monkeys. But under regression, they were actually gray aliens. So I think they appeared to me as these little playful monkeys, so I would not be frightened, because I was only, about 4 or 5 years old. The next event that I had was at the age of 10, when 2 humanoid beings appeared by my bed and indicated they had come to rebalance my karma from a past life of about 5,000 years ago, in which I beheaded a sacred white elephant. And this karma had carried throughout lifetimes, and they were there to help me in this rebalancing. And so as I indicated, I was raised in a Southern Baptist community and had not been exposed to any other really types of formal religions other than the Baptist. So I did not know anything about any sacred white elephants, most likely from the Hindu religion as a 10-year-old. So I recalled being floated out of my bedroom by these beings on board a craft and having them work above my head as I lay on a table. It wasn't painful, but it was frightening. As a 10-year-old, I wasn't sure what was happening. Who are these people? Where am I? When they returned me to my room, I did not remember a lot about where I had been. I just know that I was back, and I thought I was missing my head. So as a 10-year-old, I think I became confused about what they told me as far as what I'd done, in beheading this sacred elephant and then them doing this procedure on my head. But it was a very traumatic experience. After that event, about 2 days later, I woke and had just this incredible redness from the neck up, covering my entire neck, face, and head, almost like a really fine rash, but just bright red. And my parents took me to the doctor. They couldn't explain what had caused it, but I was prescribed some topical cream and was out of school for about 2 weeks until it finally went away. And so as an adult, when I reflected back on that, I can't help but think that there was some association of, being on board the craft and possibly the procedure I'd undergone and this redness from the neck up. So that, those were pretty significant events as a child. That enabled me to really apply even more quantum theory to what this could possibly be. So over time, I had started presenting up and down the East Coast at different conferences, and I'd been invited in 2013 to present at Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia. That's sort of the East Coast version of Comic Con. It's a 3-day event. Tens of thousands of people come through. They have various tracks for presentation. And in 2013, I was invited and I presented a quantum theory and paranormal sort of combination presentation. And I was fortunate that year and that Stanton Friedman attended. Stanton, brought Roswell to the forefront and was a physicist himself. He sat in on my presentation and was impressed with the scientific approach to the paranormal, and subsequently introduced me to Kathleen Martin as someone that I might collaborate with, not only in the ufology, but also the paranormal, because Kathleen had had some paranormal experiences throughout her life. But as many of your viewers probably know, Kathleen's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, the mixed race couple that was abducted in the early 60s, as well as a longstanding member of MUFON and the director of the MUFON Experiencer Research Team. So that was a nice introduction by Stanton. And over about a two to 3 year period, Kathleen and I developed some camaraderie, and I might have some paranormal activity going on. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that. I was thinking they're like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, that's odd because we're not having any kinds of storms or anything here. And, this kind of stuff happens to me. I saw a huge green orb outside my window a few nights ago, just hanging there. But at any rate, so we'll hope that they don't shut the power down.
Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome, whoever they are.
Yeah.
Come on.
So anyway, that's, kind of how I ended up into the ufology research and broadening my experiences.
Yeah. And we've talked obviously before, and some of the same names you mentioned, I was fortunate to talk to, and as well. What strikes me is, and has struck me about you, is your clinical background really did provide a good baseline and a foundation for paranormal research, because you've got knuckleheads like, I don't know, myself and others that just don't have the the experience or wherewithal to draw upon that and really process some of the things maybe we hear or see the way you have. So I've always been fascinated about that. And I've also have, firsthand has seen some of the evidence that you provided, even in one of our investigations with the spirit box. You gave me a name after I came back from a weekend, and it was the same name we got with the spirit box that weekend. And that's the type of things that, you didn't know, you had no idea. And it became common. And then when we went back again, it happened again. So, there's something definitely to it. And I'm fascinated by that. And for those that don't know, you've got a new website. And what's the name of your website?
It would be found at www.pamelanance.com.
Okay.
And so I have a really good overview of my background and areas of research, and a lot of my evidence is posted there, not only the paranormal research, but the interdimensional. I have 2 evidence tabs, and information and evidence is listed under those 2 tabs. So after connecting with Kathleen, she was really intrigued with the paranormal approach to alien communication. So I met with her in person and did a short paranormal investigation just to show her, the use of the equipment and the type of approach that I took. And she thought it would be a really good idea to go to an area with reputed alien interaction. And she introduced me to a man that lives in the eastern part of North Carolina, who had had an abduction experience in 2007 with his son. And that was by the Cape Fear River. This piece of property where the gentleman lived was about 2 miles from the river. And after the 2007 abduction event, he and his family had quite a few encounters on their property where they lived over an 8-year period that brought us to about 2015. So 8 years from 2007 to 2015, when I first met him, multiple encounters and experiences and strange happenings had occurred on his home property. So she introduced me to this individual. And in June of 2015, I traveled to that location with my investigative partner at that time to conduct a paranormal investigation, but with the goal to communicate with alien presence. And so we arrived on the property early afternoon, got to know the family, walked the property, heard all the stories about the activity, and decided that we would locate ourselves that evening under about a 40-foot catalpa tree in the backyard. And this tree had kind of been the center of a lot of activity on the property. So I guess we went out about 10 o'clock that evening. The first thing we did was set up the video camera about 15 feet behind that tree. We wanted a really good view of the tree, since that's where we were going to be standing, and a lot of activity, occurred there. So we wanted to capture a nice view of the tree. So that was around 10 o'clock, maybe a little before 10. We set up the video camera, And then we went and positioned ourselves under the tree and began the investigation. It was a star-filled night, about a 3/4 moon, really beautiful, clear night. We had a great view of the moon from the under the tree. And so I began asking questions, the typical kind: who are you? Where are you coming from? And immediately started getting communications that indicated they were at the moon. They were to the left of the moon. They were circling the moon, behind the moon, and also the name of their planet that I'd been getting for about 4 or 5 years at that point started coming through. And they said their planet is Adela. So when I would ask, where are you from? They said Adela. And so I knew that these beings that I had encountered on other investigations were there coming through. And so we were just continuing to ask questions, getting really good EVP coming through. And we noticed a really bright light to the left of the moon. And so we were standing discussing, is that a star, or, is it something else? Because it's really much bigger than any of the surrounding stars. It was bright, it was kind of pulsating. And the next conscious recall I had, I'm still staring at the moon, but the bright light's no longer there. And my equipment is no longer in my hands. And I felt really sick and dizzy and nauseous. And I relayed that to my partner and the property owner, and they agreed they didn't feel well. And my partner realized she no longer had her equipment. And never in our careers had we turned off our equipment in the middle of an investigation. That would just have been counterintuitive to our purpose in being there. And so I looked around and found the equipment behind us on the ground under the tree turned off. But at that point, I just felt kind of out of it, sort of dazed and kind of confused. And we just picked our equipment up, went over to the video camera, and it was still recording. So we shut down the video camera, carried everything back to the property owner's house, went in the back door, and his wife came running frantically out of the bedroom in her nightgown, asking where had we been. And we were like, we were out back under the tree investigating. And she said, no, I've been looking for you. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. So that really blew my mind, because we had just gone out. It felt like, it was 10 o'clock. And I thought, at the most it should be about 11. We haven't been out there that long. And she said, no, it's 1 o'clock. So I just kind of chalked it up to being tired, having had a full day of interacting, with these people and investigating. And, I'd driven 3 hours and still had to drive home. So we just started drinking coffee and loaded up our equipment, and arrived back to my house about 5 o'clock that morning. And my partner had to drive back to Georgia. So we grabbed just a couple hours of sleep. She hit the road to Georgia, and I started reviewing my audio. And I had only an hour and 15 minutes of audio. So if we went out at 10, that would have taken us to 11:15, but we didn't go inside until 1 o'clock, which meant I had an hour and 45 minutes of missing audio. So I called my partner. I said, as soon as you get home, review the video footage, because something strange happened. I have only an hour and 15 minutes of audio, and we were out there for 3 hours. And so she reviewed the audio, and over the next couple of days, we realized, something really strange had happened. The audio indicated that at the end of that hour and 15 minutes, it's as though my partner is being directed by someone outside the recording, because she says, "So you want us to turn off our equipment?" And then I agree with whomever this is that's speaking. I was like, "Yeah, let's turn off our equipment." And neither of us remembered saying that. And in addition, she pulled video showing this being sitting up in that catalpa tree, as well as a lot of audio that indicated they were abducting us. Probably we have at least 50 pieces of EVP of them saying, we see them, we're abducting, we're coming in, we've got them, get them, bring them on board the craft. So that in combination with the video, paints a pretty clear picture